There's a belief that's become almost untouchable in personal growth spaces, and that is if you think possible and positively enough, or visualize hard enough, and say the right affirmations, etc., things will work out. And sometimes they do, and it's really awesome when they do. In a recent conversation on this topic for this show, my guest Cori Sartori, who's really amazing guest, she shared a powerful story about envisioning a healthy pregnancy and seeing that vision become a reality. And it was heart touching and it really mattered. It also worked for her. And if you watch that episode, you'll hear, I told her, I was like, I almost started crying. And what I explained to her after we were done recording was that it wasn't because of how amazing her little miracle was. It was because of my own experience. And I want to honor Cori's story, and I definitely don't want to challenge it. But she and I talked about it quite extensively after, and I shared my thoughts and feelings with her. And she ended up agreeing with me on what I'm going to talk about today, which is this. I want to talk about the other side of that conversation, the part that we don't say out loud very often, because what happens when you do everything right and it still doesn't work? When we lost our twins last March, that was me. I literally did everything right. I took all of the supplements that my doctor suggested, and even the ones that weren't suggested by my doctor that were in the book. It starts with the egg. I followed my doctor's directions very closely. I believed, I visualized, I wrote and rewrote affirmations for a healthy pregnancy and a healthy baby, and I pictured myself holding that healthy baby. And we still lost the pregnancy before we even knew that they were two babies. This episode isn't about tearing down positive mindset, man, because that is powerful. Positive mindset is huge, but when it isn't grounded in truth, it can quietly turn into something dangerous, something that leaves people blaming themselves for outcomes they never controlled in the first place. We're going to talk about what positive thinking can and can't do, and why negative thoughts don't cause tragedy, and how to hold on to hope without turning it into a measuring stick for worth or faith or failure. If you've ever wondered what you're allowed to believe when life doesn't cooperate, I hope you'll stay with me. And if you're new here, this show is about building real success, starting with your mindset and carrying that on through your actions and the results you create in every area of life. And I want to discuss the hard stuff. I want to discuss, like the topics that really, really pull people in, and the topics that are, because I really do believe that mindset is important, but I also recognize that it has to be based on truth too. And I'm a huge fan of Napoleon Hill. I've read a bunch of his books. I'm a fan of Bob Proctor too, and I've read about most of his books. And I recognize that what they teach is really powerful. It just is. But one of the things that Napoleon Hill stresses and emphasizes is that it has to be based on truth too. You can't just expect something to happen when there is no basis in reality for it. And sometimes when things don't go the way we want them to go, it's not because we didn't act right or we didn't believe hard enough. So I want to talk about that for a little bit because, yeah, like it's just really, really important to recognize, yes, your mindset matters. It really matters. It really does. But sometimes it doesn't matter what you believe or how hard you believe. It's things don't go the way you want them to go. And it's not because you didn't act right or you didn't believe hard enough. And I do feel that it can be quite damaging to talk about how important mindset is and to not acknowledge that there's an awful background. There's an awful shadow side of life that we have to deal with where things don't go the way we want them to go. And one of the worst things a mindset coach can tell you is like, you must not have thought, you must not have been positive enough. You must not have thought through things right. You didn't affirm or didn't believe enough. I truly do not believe that, because sometimes God has other plans. He really does. And learning to embrace his will and his timing in everything, it is really, really important. Like, we need to be able to recognize that there is a power greater than us that is in charge. And I think C.S. Lewis that talks about we're comfortable in our little cozy cottage, and God comes along and he starts breaking walls down and starts digging things out, and he starts moving things around, and we're like, no, I was comfortable the way I was. Like, why are you doing this to me? And God's whole goal is not to turn us into like this little happy version of us that gets everything we want right when we want it. He wants to turn us into the best version of ourselves possible. And that includes allowing us to experience really hard things in life, even when we positive thought our way to them, or had the right mindset, or had all the goals the way we were supposed to have them. Like, we don't bring those bad things on ourselves. And I really want to talk about like negative thoughts. Like, we don't necessarily bring negative things to ourselves. And I will talk about that in a little bit. I do believe, again, being negative all the time can bring bad things to us, but it doesn't necessarily bring the thing we're thinking about. Like, my husband and I were talking about this the other day. Like, negative thought process does not, like, if I'm afraid of a fire and my house never burns down, or if I'm, like, it doesn't necessarily bring it to us. And I know people whose houses caught on fire who never even occurred to them that would possibly happen. And so that they did not bring it to themselves by thinking bad thoughts or negative thoughts. And so, like, for example, our first miscarriage, it didn't even occur to us that it was possible that I would not have a healthy baby. It did not occur to us. Never once did the thought enter our mind, oh my goodness, I need to think healthy baby to get a healthy baby, because I'd had 3 healthy babies before that. And I know I did not bring that on myself by having a healthy mindset. And just like with the twins that we lost last March, where I did have all the healthy mindset and I did have all the goals, and I was thinking about holding a healthy baby, and I was envisioning that. And I truly believed it would happen, and it still did not happen, because it has to be based on truth. And sometimes, like, God, he's not taking our goals away from us. He sometimes says, not now. He says, sometimes you're not ready for it. You truly aren't ready for what you want. Or maybe you don't have the knowledge that you need to reach that goal the way you want to reach it. Maybe there's things outside of your control that, if you were aware of, would shape how you approached your goal. And I don't want this to discourage anybody. I really don't want you to say, well, then my goal's not worth reaching, because, like, one of Napoleon Hill, he talks about, one of the stories he gives is, he talks about people, the gold rush people, and I can't remember their names exactly, but there's a man who went out west to dig for gold, and he worked really hard, and he finally just gave up, and he sold his plot, and the person who bought it from him hired somebody, an engineer or something, who went and looked, and was like, you know what, gold's not going to be over here, but because of my knowledge of minerals and engineering, and I can't remember what kind of an engineer he was, but a structural engineer, not structural. Anyway, this is what he did. He's like, you're going to find gold more over here. And the guy dug, and the gold was 3 feet away from where the first guy had stopped digging. And if that first guy had thought, you know what, based on truth, if he had thought, let me bring in people who are experienced and people who are experts in this area. And then if he'd done that and he'd continued working, he would have gotten to the gold. And so you never know how close you are to your goal. And sometimes it is just a matter of learning more and adjusting your goals and your expectation based on what is truth, right? Okay, so I've got this new thing I'm going to do with you guys. And that is, I'm going to share my screen. Let me see here. I am going to share this right here. So go ahead and share that, and that should be visible to you all. But I want to talk about the laws to getting what you want. And our first mindset / career / goal coach or whatever, life coach, name was Todd, and he introduced this to us. And he introduced the initial idea to us, the first 7 steps, and he's like, there's this is not the end of it, and I supplied the last step, which I'm going to go over with you guys here. But so this is the laws to getting what you want, basically the laws to reaching your goals and to understanding how the world operates. And the first one is, and I hope you guys don't mind my scratchy handwriting, so the first one is, the law works positively. So the law works positively. I'm live, so I misspelled that, right? Positively, whatever. So what I mean by that is, if you plant good, you're going to receive good. And we know that that's accurate because there's so many, the laws of karma, what goes around comes around. The law of the harvest, you plant what you sow what you plant. And even physics, equal and opposite reaction to everything. You put out a reaction, you're going to get a reaction back. And so the law works positively. So whatever you put in your brain, as a man thinketh, that's what you're going to get back, right? It does work positively. The law also works negatively. So what I mean by that is, the law works negatively. If you're thinking, I'm not saying like if you're thinking your house is going to burn down and it's going to bring that to yourself. You're not going to burn your house down and then all of a sudden, or sorry, think about burning your house down and all of a sudden have your house get burned down. What I mean is, if you're thinking always about like worst case scenario, you're going to live a life of anxiety. You're going to live a life of depression and discouragement, and you won't reach your goals, right? It doesn't mean that you're going to bring all those horrible things to you, but you're not going to be happy. You're not going to be fulfilled. You're not going to be successful as you could be. So the law works negatively. You plant negative, you're going to reap negative, right? Okay, then the next thing is the law is abundant. The law is abundant. So when you plant one corn seed, one kernel of corn, whatever, you don't just get one kernel of corn back, you get a lot back, right? You get heads of corn and you get tons of them and you get the ability to continue becoming abundant. And this is how God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, works. Like God wants to bless you abundantly. And so when you do things according to his law, he's going to bless you abundantly. So the law is abundant. You plant a little bit, you receive more. Okay. And that goes negatively and that goes positively. So whatever you plant is what you're going to get more of. And again, that doesn't mean you're going to be worried about having an earthquake destroy your house and that's going to bring an earthquake on you. No, that's not how it works, right? There are many ways to plant. There are many ways to plant. And what I mean by that is there's not going to be one road to success. Like the way somebody else publishes a book and becomes a best-selling author is probably not the way you're going to do it. And so the way somebody runs their landscaping business and the way they reach clients and the way they grow is probably not going to be the way you're going to do it. And that is totally okay. There are many ways to plant. Okay. And then next is anyone can do it. Anyone can do it. Anyone can do it. So what I mean by that is anyone can use this law. So, the law works positively. What you reap, what you sow. The law works negatively. Again, if you're thinking bad and negative thoughts, worst case scenario, you're going to bring depression, anxiety, and dis-ease on yourself, right? The law is abundant, what you plant anyway. So anyone can do it. This is going to work for anybody, even if they don't understand these laws. If they put them into effect into their life, and if they don't even know that that's what they're doing, that it's going to still work for them. Okay, so next, if you don't plant, you can't harvest. You can't harvest, okay? If you do not ever plant that kernel of corn, you're never going to grow corn. If you don't plant the seed of your goal, you're not going to reach your goal. If you don't start working towards your goal, you're not going to reach your goal. It cannot happen on accident. Like me becoming I don't know, what is my goal? Millions of readers worldwide. I can't, I've got my goal in my brain, but it's really personal, so I'm not going to share the actual goal. But I'll just, millions of readers worldwide, right? That's not going to surprise you guys as an author that is my goal. If I don't ever publish that first book, I'm never going to get millions of readers worldwide. If I never do more than that first book, I'm never going to get millions. You can't just get your goal without actually working on it. So if you don't plant, you can't harvest. And that includes what you're planting in your brain. So if you're not planting these laws of success, the ability to believe that you're going to actually achieve, you're not going to actually achieve if you don't actually believe it can happen. Okay, and then this is the next one. This is the whole reason why I wanted to talk about this in this particular episode. Sometimes, guys, crap happens. And when Todd shared this with us, he didn't use the word crap, but I don't swear, so I'm saying crap. So sometimes crap happens. Okay. And this is where my miscarriages comes into place. Like this is where, me spraining my ankle and having major reconstructive surgery on it. This is my 6 knee surgeries where I've had major reconstructive surgery on my knees 6 times. This is where things happen. Like I was born with hypermobility syndrome, and that means that basically I'm more flexible than people usually are, and I injure very easily because my joints are so loose. And I did not wish that on myself. I didn't negatively think that into my life, guys. Sometimes crap happens. Sometimes things happen that are outside of our control. Like bad things even. And you didn't wish it on yourself, and you didn't bring it to yourself by thinking, not thinking positive mindset enough. You didn't bring it on yourself because of not having the right affirmation, or not saying your affirmations every day, or not even, you didn't bring it on yourself by not being grateful every day. So gratitude does not stop life from happening to you. Gratitude does not stop crap from happening. And this is the step that I added in. Plant anyway. And this is, I believe this so strongly. Like how are you going to get, how are you going to reach your goals if you don't plan anyway? How are you going to reach your goals if when you don't reach it the first time around, you give up? Like that man digging for gold, he dug for a very long time and he was very diligent, but he still gave up ultimately. And I'm not saying that means that you can't change your goal, because again, truth, it has to be based on truth. And as you gain more knowledge, you learn sometimes that goal wasn't what you really wanted. Maybe what you really wanted was adjacent to it, or was completely opposite. And I've talked about in the past, like when your values and your goals are in when they don't match up, like your values are stopping you from reaching your goals, you have to, like, when you come to recognize that there's something that you want more than your goal, I mean, you can adjust your goal, and that's not giving up. That's just course correcting, like a jet that finds out that it's like 1 degree off. 1 degree off will lead you way far away in the end. And so doing minor course corrections, that's not the same thing as giving up. And adjusting your goal, or even recognizing that your goal is not what you want and completely changing it, that's not giving up. That's finding that truth and learning what is actually plausible, and not plausible by way of like, oh, it's not possible to make $50,000 a year as an author. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like, I cannot possibly positive think my way into a healthy pregnancy if I do not have the healthy eggs that are necessary to get a healthy pregnancy. It has to be based on truth. And like there's so many women out there like that do all the mindset and they do not get that healthy baby. And sometimes you can't control, but that's where, like in my case, like what if we chose to adopt, or what if we adopted an embryo, or what if we did foster care? There's so many different ways to become a parent. And so you just you course correct to reach your goal instead of just giving up on it entirely. And again, like I said, sometimes crap happens. That doesn't mean that the goal was wrong. It means maybe your timeline was wrong, or maybe you had the wrong information. Maybe it wasn't fully based on truth, but plant anyway. Seriously, like plant anyway. And let me see if I can go ahead and stop sharing that. Anyway, so if you take nothing else from this episode, I really hope what you take with you is this, that not everything happens as a verdict on your mindset or your faith or your effort or what you tried really hard to do. Sometimes crap happens, guys. And there are laws to life. What we plant does matter, but sometimes painful things still happen that have nothing to do with our belief or our positivity or doing things wrong or doing things right. And carrying the weight of blame, like that self-blame on top of grief, does not make us stronger. It can actually hold us back. And significantly, like if we can't forgive the past and blame that we carried that we didn't actually carry, if we can't heal from that trauma, we can't move forward. We cannot adjust our mindsets, and we can't learn from what happened so that we can move forward and make things better moving forward. And I just said move forward a lot, but hope matters, guys. Positive thinking matters, and they work best when they're rooted in truth and not fear, of course, and not in the idea that we can control every outcome simply by wanting them badly enough. So if you're walking through something that's really hard right now that didn't turn out the way you wanted it to, and the way you prayed for it to happen, or the way you believed in or worked towards, I want you to hear this clearly. You are not broken, and you did not fail. You did not bring that upon yourself because of your lack of a positive mindset. I promise. I absolutely promise that. Thank you so much for being here and for trusting me with this conversation. I'm going to continue talking about the hard things alongside the happy, successful things, the dreams that we have for the future, because again, I want to help you build real success in all areas of life, regardless of what's happening, regardless of all the horrible things that might be happening. In spite of all the horrible things that might be happening, I want to help you build success. I want to help you work on your mindset so that you can realize your goal. And so guys, I will see you in the next episode. Thank you so much for watching.